Tonight on the Black Channel, did you know that being transsexual is considered a disability entitling you to financial benefits? It is now. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel. And I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. Oh boy, and join us you shall, because on tonight's program here, look folks, I told you, I've been telling you for years, and of course when Biden came in office, I prepared you all ready to understand exactly what you were walking into here. When people ask me, Jason, are the Democrats going to back off of this? Are they going to back down or double down? I've been saying this since day one. Oh, no, there will be no backing down from it. Now, even though this actually involves a court case, just understand this is part of the wedge being used to make sure that before we even get to discussing anything for black people, to make sure that you shovel in everything for literally everybody else you can so that you bury black people under all these other privileged groups who get special protections. So for those of you who are not aware here, I could say a whole lot. Let me go ahead and just get you over to everybody's favorite whack job from MSNBC's Zerlina Maxwell. Let me go ahead and play the piece here for you so you can hear it for yourself.
How do you think this is a win? Is this a win in your view for the community of people who really need more access to resources and care?
This is a win for both the trans community and the broader disability community. The power of the definition of disability in the ADA is in its expansiveness, is that it is big enough to include people with alopecia areata. It's big enough to include kids in Flint, Michigan still fighting for clean drinking water. And now it's big enough to include the trans community, and this is huge because this means employment protections. This means protections around public accommodations and access to transportation. This actually means that the exclusion of the transgender community violates the Equal Protection Clause and the ADA. It really does give new energy to this pushback on all of these bills that are trying to segregate marginalized communities.
All right, now, you might not have even been very clear in exactly what she was referring to or what they were talking about there, because they weren't very clear about it. So, Minister Louis Farrakhan once said that confusion is how you hide murder. And if you're going to kill black people's rights, then certainly you have to confuse people. So here's a story from CNN by Devin Cole. There's Devin right there. So make of that what you will. Federal Appeals Court says Americans with Disabilities Act protections cover, quote, gender dysphoria, handing a win to trans people. He's basically their LGBTQIA plus minus etc. reporter there. And that's all he does. Go around doing that. A federal appeals court said Tuesday that the Americans with Disabilities Act covers individuals with, quote, gender dysphoria, handing a win to trans people in a case concerning a former inmate who alleged discrimination at a Virginia prison. Now, I think this person actually was black, but in a majority opinion issued by a 3-judge panel with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, the court wrote, quote, In light of the basic promise of equality that animates the ADA, we see no legitimate reason why Congress would intend to exclude the ADA's protections transgender people who suffer from gender dysphoria. We see no legitimate reason why Congress would intend to exclude from the ADA's protections transgender people who suffer from gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria describes an uncomfortable conflict between a person's assigned gender and the gender with which the person identifies, according to the American Psychiatric Association. So if you want to know why people hate psychiatrists, this kind of gives you a really good idea. So just understand what this is. Gender dysphoria is when a person basically just saying, that's basically describing transsexuals. That's it. That's describing transsexuals. That's all. Quote, we have little trouble concluding that a law excluding from ADA protection both gender identity disorders and gender dysphoria would discriminate against transgender people as a class, implicating the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, the ruling said, referring to a constitutional clause that has been used in court to protect minority groups from discrimination. Now, this is basically saying that you can consider somebody who's transsexual to be a disorder. So even for the people who want to say that it is a disorder, they're like, okay, well, it's protected. You don't see the LGBTQ jumping up and saying, hey, that's not a disorder. We know exactly what we are. We know exactly what's going on. Don't let some of the wording here fool you into thinking this is about somebody who is unsure about their gender or sexuality. Don't let it fool you into that, because that's not what it's saying. This goes well beyond that. It goes on to say here, the treatment of trans inmates has long been a focus of advocates for trans rights, with stories of abuse fueling calls for reform and more targeted anti-discrimination laws. Activists hailed Tuesday's ruling, saying it will be a helpful precedent for future litigation. Did you get that? Activists hailed Tuesday's ruling, saying it will be a helpful precedent for future litigation. The case of Keisha Williams, a trans woman, in other words, this is a biological male who identifies as a female, was in prison. So this was a biological male who was in prison and apparently decided to identify as a woman to cope with prison life. I don't know, but that seems to be what you end up here with. So it says the case at hand concerned Keisha Williams, a trans woman with gender dysphoria who was held for 6 months at a Virginia prison. Quote, though prison deputies initially assigned her to women's housing, they quickly moved her to men's housing when they learned that she was transgender. Now, you got all these stories coming out, these so-called transsexual inmates who are out here impregnating women. They're impregnating biological women. So they got into prison, claimed to be transsexual so that they could be transferred to a women's prison. And once they got to the women's prison, their sexuality all of a sudden went back to being male. The way in which all of a sudden they were attracted to females all of a sudden. Ain't that something? Though prison deputies initially assigned her to a women's housing, they quickly moved her to men's housing when they learned that she was transgender, according to the ruling, which said that while held in the men's facility, Williams, quote, experienced delays in medical treatment for her gender dysphoria, harassment by other inmates, and persistent and intentional misgendering and harassment by prison deputies. Williams sued several individuals connected to the prison, claiming that the way she was treated was a violation of the ADA and other laws. A district court initially dismissed Williams' case on the basis of the ADA's explicit exclusion of gender identity disorders not resulting from physical impairments from protection under the law. Williams appealed, arguing that because the language of the exclusion is dated and undefined, it was up to the court to determine whether gender dysphoria is protected under the ADA. Did you hear that? Didn't argue that that's not what the law says. Argued that, well, it's dated and undefined. It's not undefined. You can clearly see what it says. In other words, they got some white attorneys to say, here's your new "we're white and we say so" law. The appeals court, citing an updated medical understanding, reversed the lower court's dismissal. Quote, "In sum, we hold that Williams has plausibly alleged that gender dysphoria does not fall within the ADA's exclusion for, quote, gender identity disorders not resulting from physical impairments," the ruling said. Well, if that doesn't qualify for the exclusion, then what does? If this doesn't qualify for the exclusion, what does? The exclusion very clearly says what it is. You're not physically impaired. So in other words, they basically just said, yeah, we're just going to ignore this. I want you to understand, for those of you who have children in these schools, you better be paying attention to this kind of thing. If you have children in these schools or anywhere the government is in charge or has influence, just understand, you better be aware of that. By the way, if you all like tonight's program, give me a thumbs up in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. We're running low on likes right now, so if people don't like what they're hearing on the program, I'll have to go ahead and wrap things up early. So if you like tonight's program, go ahead and let us know. In any case, so the article here goes on to say, though the matter still needs to go back to a lower court to settle additional questions central to the case, Joshua Elric, an attorney for Williams, told CNN that Tuesday's ruling, quote, is a really meaningful win for trans people more broadly because the opinion applies not just to people who are incarcerated, but for workplace accommodations, for public accommodations. Oh, in other words, we can have these biological males go into the bathroom with your biological daughters. The ruling in this case is consistent with the ruling in Bostock several years ago that extended employment protection. Now, do you understand what that means there when they start talking like that? This extends employment protections. So the real point I wanted to get to here tonight was when we start talking about things like whether or not you are able to get benefits for these things. Just understand what that means. Understand what that means. That's not a minor thing. That's put there for a reason. So it extended employment protections under Title VII to trans people, he said, referring to a 2020 Supreme Court ruling that said federal civil rights law protects LGBTQ workers. He continued, quote, I think that this ruling in a lot of ways was mandated by the language of Bostock to the extent that Bostock has created a positive trajectory for trans rights. This is a continuation of that. A number of advocacy groups signed onto a friend of the court brief in the case, co-authored by the LGBTQ legal rights group GLAAD and the National Center for Lesbian Rights. In a statement following the ruling, NCLR's legal director Shannon Minter said the decision, quote, the decision sets a powerful precedent that will be important for the courts considering this critical issue. And Jennifer Levi, The director of GLAAD's Transgender Rights Project said in the same statement that it, quote, would turn disability law upside down to exclude someone from its protection because of having a stigmatized medical condition. They're now basically referring to being transsexual as a medical condition. I thought they said there was no issue with that. Well, Jason, they're talking about gender dysphoria. That's a conflict about it. No, you just heard what they said here. You heard what they said here. This is a meaningful win for trans people. Don't sit up here and try to act like this is just limited. Oh, well, if they have gender dysphoria, the attorneys here are making it very clear what this is about and who this is for. This is not for people with gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is simply the argument that they were making on behalf of trans people. These are the words of the attorney. This is a meaningful win for trans people. A win for trans people, not people with gender dysphoria. It ended here by saying this opinion goes a long way toward removing social and cultural barriers that keep people with treatable but misunderstood medical conditions from being able to thrive. So in other words, being transsexual is a medical condition that entitles you to treatment. Now it entitles you to treatment. The whole point of this is that now you start having financial benefits. That's the whole point. Employment protections, financial benefits. You notice that as soon as we start talking about reparations and it starts getting serious traction, all of a sudden you start seeing every damn thing else jump up here. You start seeing everything else jump up all of a sudden out of nowhere. Next thing you know, the conversation is shifted. Now all of a sudden, and they're making rulings on these things. And by the way, it's not taking decades and decades to get these rulings through either, now is it? It's not taking decades and decades to get these rulings through now, is it? It's not taking them forever to get that done. Just like everything else, when it comes to black folk, oh, we need a committee. And, well, we don't know if you can identify as your own separate group as foundationals. We don't know if you can do that. We'd have to have a committee, and we'd have to have a commission, and we need to do a draft study, and then we need to get together with Mary Had a Little Lamb and Strawberry Shortcake and see if we can suss this out, and then we'll have to do a poll, and then once we get done with that, then we got to have another commission. You all notice this. This isn't taking them decades and decades here. These things are going through quick. OGK Network, you are correct, is not identified as a mental condition, although it can be protected. Just understand, nobody is arguing that being transsexual isn't a medical condition in need of, quote, treatment. You notice that? Because they're like, oh, well, wait a minute. If I wanted to, this might be a backdoor I can use for financial benefits. You don't see any of them arguing, hey, you can't talk to us like that. No, we don't have a medical condition. Our sexual proclivities are not a medical condition. Once they said, oh, well, it's a medical condition that can get you financial benefits. Oh, man, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I will. I mean, this transgender thing sure is heavy on me. You notice that's going on. You notice that's going on now. Don't see any of that pushback happening. All that pushback that was happening here before that you would think you'd be seeing and whatnot to people who want to sit up here and say, okay, it's not really an issue. That went out the window damn fast, didn't it? That went out the window damn fast. And again, it didn't take an act of Congress. Didn't take an act of Congress. Didn't take a study. Nobody had to sit up here and do any hustle work. You didn't have to lobby Congress. You got that through quick, fast, and in a hurry. And by the way, didn't have to have any legislation. Here the courts came through. They had the courts come through. Didn't require any legislation at all. We got the courts to come through and say, oh, don't worry, you already have that ability. See, for Asians, they don't have to have a study. Oh, you've already got those protections. For black people, yeah, we're not sure you have any protections. Yeah, not really certain about that. We're looking into it. Well, let me guess, you're having a study? Yes. Well, actually, we're not having a study yet. Little smart ass nigga. No, we're not having a study yet, but we might do that. So, we'll get back to you here later if we and let you know what the results are of our planning to start the study about what you should get, if you should get anything, what you qualify for, and more importantly, what you don't. So just notice how that works there. Notice how that works there. It's not accidental when you see that. It's not accidental when you see that kind of thing over and over and over again. They're letting you know we are moving as much capital, we are moving as much machinery and resources as we possibly can, as quickly as we can. We are doing as much as we can to try to get as many people shored up and covered under the umbrella of, quote, civil rights. We're going to try to get as many of them covered under that umbrella as we possibly can. And so we're just going to see if we can just stall for time otherwise. We're just going to see if we can stall for time. And if we can, good. Let's see if we can stall for time there. That's all. And I told you all that was going to be the game plan going forward, is stalling for time. They know that they're in a weakened position about this. They know that they don't really have a leg to stand on to deny anything. So now the whole game plan now is just to stall for time. Get through as many other folks as you can and just stall for more time. So now take a look. All these things here that originally were intended for black folk. And by the way, let me go back and play that for you here. Remember what Zerlina Maxwell's person up here said? Did you hear what the woman said here before?
How do you think
big enough to include the definition of disability in the ADA isn't its expansiveness, is that it is big enough to include people with alopecia areata. It's big enough to include kids in Flint, Michigan still fighting for clean drinking water. And now.
So the Americans with Disabilities Act is big enough for people with alopecia, big enough for kids in Flint, Michigan who need clean drinking water. Big enough for anyone and everyone that we need it to be big enough for. And up until now, as a prime mover, you see that these were things that were being used to protect black people. Things that were being used to protect black people. Then all of a sudden you start seeing something else. All of a sudden they say, well, hell, let's just go ramrod through a bunch of other things. Let's ramrod through a bunch of other unrelated things. By the way, how's the water in Flint, Michigan? By the way, how is the water in Flint, Michigan doing right now? By the way, how is the water in Flint doing? We ready to go start distributing it at Music Mountain or what? How is the water in Flint, Michigan doing? Yeah, when you think about that for a few moments there, by the way, how is that? How is the ADA protecting kids in Flint, Michigan, by the way? How is that protecting them? How's that working out? It must be great. Listening to her here, it must be great. Gotta be. No way in the world that it isn't. It must be just fine. So just recognize that they are using everything they can at every single level they can do this. And by the way, most of you didn't even know that this had happened this week. Most of you didn't even know that this had occurred while everybody's talking about Roe v. Wade and all that. By the way, if you didn't know this had occurred, this occurred while you got your eyes on Congress, and we certainly should. By the way, this happened. This happened. How many other things are floating out there now that they're moving into place? It's like, okay, this is the last hurrah. We got to make sure everything is in place now. And see, they will use black inmates or black issues to get attention on these things. But when it's time to actually dole out benefits for these things, it's going to be white folk who get that. It's going to be white folk who get that. When it's actually time to start distributing money and start distributing protections and everything, oh, it's going to be a bunch of white folks sitting there for that. See, they use black people's legitimate grievances and legitimate struggle as their justification for setting these things into place. And then when it's time to actually protect black folk, then here comes the swerve. Here comes the swerve. Everything's all good until it's actually time to protect black people. Then here comes the swerve. That's when that occurs. That's not an accident. That's not an accident when you see that kind of thing occurring here. So going forward, I want y'all to recognize what I told you here before. Oh no, they're going to be steady doing this everywhere for all these things. This is the new public policy, man. This isn't accidental. This is the new this is public, but I can't even say it's new. This is public policy. It is public policy now. Legislation, the courts, the federal agencies that are in charge of these things that can put together mandates and things like that on their own. Yeah. Everybody's looking at everything. Someone tell me what is happening to transsexuals that is so pressing that they need this constant attention all the time. What in the world's happening that's so pressing? It just seems that the only time you started focusing on this was as soon as it was time to do something with black folk. And all of a sudden it was time to focus on this. All of a sudden. That's the thing I'm taking a look at. All of a sudden it requires that. What I want to do here now, I'm going to go ahead and open up the telephone lines now. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. We're not going to even do our commercial, non-commercial break tonight. We're not going to do that. Because the reason why I'm doing a nice program here is because we're talking about the leapfrogging of black people. The very idea of a civil rights movement was simply a euphemism for black people. And because we allowed other folks to tell us, well, you can't name it black, you can't do that. Women can name it a women's movement, and gays can name it a gay movement, but you can't use black. You can't use that term. And even now in the 21st century, they're telling you that you can say Asian, but you can't say black. That's not an accident either when you see that consistently occurring. This is the strategy to leapfrog black people when it comes to civil rights. They're basically leapfrogging us now. They're leapfrogging us and giving it to everyone else. Oh yeah, they want to discuss civil rights up one side and down the other now, just so long as it leapfrogs us. Just so long as it dances around us. As soon as you open the doors and tell it, okay, come on in, all of a sudden it starts swerving in another direction. Starts swerving in another direction. But that's why I'm opening the telephone lines here tonight. You are welcome to go ahead and give us a call. Before I do, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program here on PayPal, Cash App, Super Chat. So, local Atlanta Farm Company, thank you very much for your support here tonight. We appreciate that. Big shout out here to Theodore, Hector W., Coons, Sherman, Mark B., and Andrew L. Thank you very much for your support here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and take a few phone calls, and this is especially important for those of you who have children. This is especially important for those of you who have children. By codifying this stuff into law, understand, by them saying that this is codified into law now, just understand, if you got children somewhere, you're going to see this come up where they are. You're going to see this come up as a reason, as an excuse, as, oh, well, you know, there's a Supreme Court ruling or appellate court ruling that allows XYZ. We can go ahead and do that. I want you all to think about that for a few moments. If you have somebody who, forbid, let's just say you have a female relative, a biological female relative, and for whatever reason, let's just say that she is at the hospital. She's at the hospital now, and they might be in a situation where their ability of movement is compromised. They're not around a bunch. They think they're around a bunch of females, but they're actually not. If you got somebody who's a biological female in your family and they're currently incarcerated, forbid, imagine that kind of situation. Some of them chicks might be okay with this dude doing what he does. But what if it's one of your kinfolk and she's not okay with that? And they got her locked up in a cell with a biological male who identifies as female. See, this is the part they're not talking about. Well, we can't move him because that would be medical discrimination. We can't move him because that would be medical discrimination. So, y'all thought that scene from the movie Penitentiary where Too Sweet had to fight the fella in the jail cell? Y'all thought that was uncomfortable. Consider if that's one of your female nieces, female cousins, your daughter, and she's in that situation. Think that over for a few moments. Well, don't worry, Linda. They're suffering from gender dysphoria, so they're not even really thinking about you. Don't worry about that. They're not even thinking about you. We're going to go ahead and open up the telephone lines now. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Let's go ahead and get caller from area code 404. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Okay, caller from area code 404. You're on live. Okay, we're going to see if we can give them a moment here. They might be having some difficulties there. Let's try them one more time. Caller from area code 404. Last try. You're on live with the Black Channel. Okay, we'll come back to them. Caller from area code 773. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Okay, I'm thinking I hear them, but they sound real quiet for some odd reason. Not really sure why they're doing that. It sounds real quiet. We'll come back to that here in just a moment. But on tonight's program here, what we're discussing is about people having that ability, giving folks the ability to claim disability in order to leapfrog black folk. Not under new legislation, but under existing legislation. Not under new legislation, but under existing legislation. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act. How many of you knew that the Americans with Disabilities Act protects, quote, trans people? How many of you knew that? How many of you knew that the Americans with Disabilities Act actually is a transsexual protection act and gives benefits? How many of you knew that? How many of you are aware that that was what was occurring? Because that's what's going on now. Now it protects that. Now you got that protection. Okay, I just went to Blog Talk and I just checked to make sure my audio is good. So I'm not really sure what's going on with some of these folks here tonight, but the audio is good on it. At least it's supposed to be good on it. Gonna see if I can try one more here. I'm not sure why they're having difficulties with that. Caller from area code 929. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? You know, for some reason, they're sitting there and it's not picking up their calls for some reason. They're on the line. They can hear me, but we are not hearing them for whatever reason. And I got them all connected, so I'm not really sure why they're having trouble. Everything else is in place. I'm not sure what they're having trouble with, so. Oh, we'll just go ahead and not take phone calls here tonight, I guess. I'm not really sure why they're having difficulties, but I do know I got audio coming in from their side, so everything there is working out. I'm not sure why they're not coming through on that. Going forward here for the next 100 years, what is it going to look like? What is the landscape going to look like for the next 100 years when you have a situation where now everybody is being put into place early on to be able to make a claim that doesn't have to go through Congress, that doesn't have to go through scrutiny, that doesn't have to go through anything else? What do you do under those situations when you got that? What's it going to be like here in 10 years? Because just understand, they're telling you this is just the start. They're just beginning the machinations. They're just getting started with where they're going here. There's going to be more lawsuits for more things. There's going to be more lawsuits for more things. And how many of you are going to have children that they're going to try to sit up here and tell you, oh, your kids are confused. So your kids are confused. So what do you know? They're covered as a disability. So the new disability check will be if you can identify as transsexual. Is that going to be covered as a disability that you can get a check for now? Is that going to be covered as that? Is that going to be covered as something that gives you that type of right to be able to do that? That you can get imagine that, getting a disability check for being transsexual. And it sounds humorous in some ways. It sounds humorous until you realize, oh no, they're serious. It sounds humorous until you realize that they are actually serious in what they're saying. They're not playing around. They really do mean that. When they say that that's what it is, that's really what they mean. Yeah. And then telling black folk there's nothing for us. Then telling black people there's nothing for us. How in the world did you get this far? Well, once again, you have to take it back to the civil rights generation. Once again, you have to take it back to the civil rights generation. Once again, you got to lay this at their feet, man. I got to lay this at their feet for this kind of thing to occur. The civil rights generation had every opportunity to resolve and fix what they were doing. And this is why it is so important now that we identify ourselves properly. We have to identify ourselves properly because this is what's going on if you don't. If you don't identify yourself properly, this is what occurs. You leave that door open. You see, back in the 60s and stuff, Dr. Claude Anderson has talked about this for decades now. Civil rights. Who in the world is civil? Civil rights. This is what you get for relying on terms like civil rights. by saying, well, if we, don't worry, give Obama some time. He can't do nothing just for black folks right now. We got the weights now. This is the result of that idiocy. Sitting up here saying that as long as we deny ourselves, as long as we deny to identify ourselves, well, don't worry. A rising tide is going to lift all boats. The boat's taking off without us here. The boat's taking off without us, and nobody required a vote on anything. Now, isn't that amazing? They didn't require them to take a vote. And the reason why they didn't is because as black people, we've been sold on the idea that there just hasn't been the right legislation passed for us yet. We've been sold on the idea that if we could just get the right legislation passed, then we'll be okay. That there's some other hurdle that we haven't cleared yet, and if we would just do that, it would be okay. And we all know better than that. We all know the real issue here is they're checking to see if they can do nothing, because the goal is to do nothing. The goal is not to do a little something. The goal is to do nothing. The goal is to do absolutely nothing. While you're watching them pass acts for Asians, LGBT, non-citizens. I mean, we're talking about legitimate legal action. Let me get caller from area code 248. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Cicely, calling from Minnesota.
All right, was that Tiddly from Minnesota?
Cicely.
Okay, Cicely from where at in Minnesota?
Yes.
From where at?
Hi,
from where at in Minnesota, Cicely?
Minneapolis.
All right, Cicely from Minneapolis. What's on your mind?
I just find it ironic that everybody's getting all these gift bags, goodies, and giveaways, but we needed a law to wear our natural hair. I'm sorry. We needed a law to wear our natural hair. Then they said they had a Crown Act. Then we needed permission to just come to work. We were criticized for wearing braids, for our earrings being too ethnic. And I've seen images of certain people in public offices with pink hair, and things of that nature. And it's like, at what point does this become hypocritical? Like, it's beyond hypocritical. And, it's satirical at this point. Like, they are, we can't even be black in peace. Like, you have videos upon videos upon videos of Karens, and yet nothing is being done about that. We are harassed constantly for no reason, just for being black. You had a young man a week ago, he was stopped for a minor traffic accident, and he ran hid in the bushes, and he was attacked by the police dog, and the police dog took his eye out. I mean, and then they said, oh, there was a stolen gun in the back of his car. Well, who knows how much of that is, accurate. But at the end of the day, these are things that happen, on the day-to-day to people of color. And yet we are not part of the discussion. And then you have these situations that come up where now they want us to accept all these other people. And, we're expected to just, okay, no problem. We're on board. But then, okay, so when is it our turn? I mean, we are the ones who needed the laws before anyone else, and it's absolutely absurd that we have to come last. It's absurd. And I think the number one problem is we have got to start realizing who these politicians are and these people that we are electing are, and stop playing these games and start canceling these coons. I mean, really, it's like they all have the same agenda. This all lives matter is the Democratic Party this time around. It's like, get out of here. Like,
well, remember, agendas
so
come from the soil up. They should never come from the top down. The people should always be spearheading and initiating the agenda. And what this does remind you is what happens when you start outsourcing your agenda, when you allow other people to choose what it should be and what it should say. Then it comes back later and bites you on the ass. So all the folks for the last 40 years who have knowingly been ignoring these warnings that we need to stop with the civil stuff and identify as black and let people know the issue is a black agenda. All the folks who willfully went along with that, that's how you got here. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 215. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this Suge from Philly.
Suge from Philadelphia. What's on your mind?
Yeah, man, I really appreciate your channel. I'm glad that you stay really steadfast on the reparations tip, because we really would benefit from obviously having our own budget so that we can go in on a lot of basically creating a new depiction or a more accurate depiction of what the black experience actually is here. But I want to say, I believe that the LGBT is actually going to try to pull a swing move on everything that black people do politically. And speaking of reparations, it says in the AB 3121 that members of the task force shall be drawn from diverse backgrounds to represent the interests of communities of color throughout the state of California, have experience working to implement racial justice reform, and to the extent possible, represent geographically diverse, once again, there's that word, areas of the state. So I know that they voted on the criteria, and obviously there are two groups at least that are named in the AB 3121, that's African Americans, who are in fact descendant of cataloged slaves here in the U.S. And then there's another group who are obviously not descendant of slaves in the U.S., and they are just descendants of anyone who was a freedman up until the end of the 1900s. So I'm just a little concerned with the language in that bill and a lot of other movement politically across the board.
Well, this is the reason why you have to have vigilance about this. I've always said that. We've been covering this now since the very beginning. So you're gonna have to stay steadfast and vigilant about this. Just because you were able to get a committee through and a commission through and to get a reparations agenda up there and going, they're going to be trying to sit up here and morph it and change it and derail it and modify it and mutate it every step of the way. They're not going to go away. That's not going to stop. They're going to keep doing that. It is my belief, however, that what's going to occur, what they're going to ultimately settle on, is they're really going to say something like, okay, we're going to pass a reparations agenda for just the descendants of American slaves. And then they're going to come back and say, okay, now we're going to take up a new committee for Latinos and then a new one for Asians. So they'll basically do it piecemeal. That's really the one to watch out for, is that they're going to sit up here and try to fight this and contest it every step of the way. And once you finally do get it through, they're going to come back and say, okay, now we're going to do something different now. And we're going to go ahead and everybody else is going to have their own committee that we're going to give them one. And what they're going to say then, if black folks, if we sit up here and say, okay, yeah, that's not going to work because you're trying to sit up here and you backdoored your agenda, instead of trying to give it to everybody else at the same time you gave it to us, you're going to give it to them right after you give it to us. And then they're going to jump up and say, well, see, no, y'all need to go sit down. Nobody was messing with you when you were having your reparations committee, so you all don't get to speak on ours. You see what I mean? So just look for that to be occurring.
Yeah.
Turn off your speakers.
See, I'm afraid that.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Just watch out for that one in particular. If you all want to know what I think of it, I think that's going to be the strategy they're going to try to use. Is that after assuming they actually do it, after they do it for foundationals, they didn't give it to everybody else while they were giving it to us. So then they'll just follow up and try to give it to everybody else after they give it to us. Let me get caller from area code 312. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, this is Holly from Chicago. B1. You remember, that black lady that just got to be judge. I think that's why she couldn't answer the question, "What is a woman?" But what they should have asked her, what is a black person? What is a foundational black person? And see if she would have had an answer for that, because I think they set it up for this day now, where all of a sudden those people were arguing all that time that they were normal and we should just leave them alone and include them in everything. But now all of a sudden they got a schizo. We knew they had a schizo. We knew it was something wrong. Yo, you got a penis, but you think you're a woman. Hello.
Well, they're doing this showing you how far they don't have anything else to work with. This is all they have. They don't have anything else to work with. They don't have anything else to throw in the way. You can't really sit up here and say that Asians are economically disenfranchised or disadvantaged, and yet they're throwing money at them anyway. So they ran out of other options. At this point right now, it's just, damn it, grab anything. I fully expect that at some point they're going to start setting money aside for aliens. No. I'm serious. I fully expect that at some point they're going to start saying we need to set aside money for aliens. We need to start a fund for aliens. They haven't landed yet. We haven't met them yet, but we need to be ready. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 404. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Nico out of Atlanta.
Nico out of Atlanta. What's on your mind?
What's going on? Difficult it ain't. I mean, listen, this is another situation where, the status quo is saying, hey, screw you. So the response should be, okay, well, screw me. Now we get busy. Now we lock and load. Now we find other areas to focus on to penetrate them. It's getting horrible. I have a daughter. I mean, we go to the burger joint. There's a she business in front of me. I don't know how to address it. I want to be nice and polite, but listen here. I have a wife. I have a daughter. I have aunts. I have mother. And last I checked, they were qualified to be women. Last I checked, they were born that way. Now I got to run around here with this PC talk. No. I'm the original man. We have to do what's right. Men, we have to go ahead and just draw the line. Women, we have to draw the line. Jason, as usual, I thank you for everything that you do, and I would always keep continuing to contribute. And I tilt my hat off to all you brothers. But I want to encourage everyone. Listen, give more so that the word can get out. Start agitating this system because they don't mind sticking their middle fingers up saying, screw you. So, hey, listen, when it comes to the little pick-me them, we don't play that. And they're getting ready. They're trying to confuse our children. Hell, they've already started. You have to draw the line, family. So, bless up to everybody, but understand what we must do. And thank you again, Mr. Jason Black.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight, brother. Please do give us a call again. Let me get a call from area code 773. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Alexander from Waukegan, Illinois.
Okay, Alexander from Waukegan. What's on your mind?
Well, Jason, it's such a quintessential broadcast as you did tonight, and I salute you for highlighting this and spotlighting this. But yeah, you were right earlier. Like Dr. Claude Anderson, our master teacher, so profoundly warned us decades ago of what was to happen, and the agenda being part of the plan. Everything that would actually make us a permanent underclass, from LGBTQ, people with disabilities, poor folk, people of color, midgets, humpbacks, the whole 9 yards. All of this to take the focus off pain and suffering with the blood, sweat, and tears of the founding and the building of our foundational Black Americans, free men, the B1 family that built this nation. So everything that he said in his books, from Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, into his speeches, he is like, this is like a testament to what he said to really warn our people what was part of the plan and what was part of the agenda.
Thank you very much for giving us a
I'm,
call
I'm,
tonight.
I'm
Please
in
do
my,
give us a
I'm in
call
my car.
again. Let me get caller Mary code 618. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. This is Miriam calling from East St. Louis, Illinois.
All right, Miriam from East St. Louis. What's on your mind?
Sure. Oh my gracious, where do I start? This is just a total cluster. You know what? They're using black as a cover cape for every issue, every Gordon variety, like the brother before the other called in and said, humpback, one-eyed, purple with spots, Asian and what the heck here? I never used that. And it's a insult. It's a woman and have a daughter and come from a line of women as well as great men. It's a slap in the face to the heterosexual family dynamic. And I'm just sick and tired of them grouping anything that has to do with the alphabet monster onto our rights as a people, national black people.
I think there's a lot to consider in that regard. Your phone's breaking up on you, but thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. I think there's a lot to consider in that regard. I want you all to think about Leah Thompson. Was that Leah Thompson? Yeah, the transsexual swimmer. Think about this for a few moments. Think about this. I mean, because what they do is they use black people as the foundation or basis to enact these things, and then they bring in the Rachel Dolezals and the Leah Thompsons, and those are the ones. Or was it Leah Thompson or Leah Thomas, whatever it is. They bring them in as the individuals to reap the benefits. So think what a Leah Thompson could do with something like this. Think about that for a few moments. Think about that. Well, they have to be protected. He has a gender dysphoria. Has a gender dysphoria. There's a whole bunch of ways you could slice this. Let me get caller Mary code 512. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, my name's Austin. I'm calling out of Manhattan by way of Austin, Texas.
Austin out of Manhattan. What's on your mind?
So I just recently moved to Manhattan about 3.5 weeks ago, and one thing I've been able to realize is when it comes to like the LGBTQ community, it's humongous here. And there's a lot of support for it, even through black people, which caught me off guard. So before I moved to New York, I was living in Houston. You would see LGBTQ stuff, but it wasn't as big as it is here. Like here, they talk about it constantly. It's like a civil rights movement. And then because I'm thinking in my head, you can't compare a bedroom activity to a race.
Yeah, but
that's what they be doing here.
Understand something.
Good.
What they did in places like New York, San Francisco. These were all places that, were hotbeds of black activity. When you talk about the Harlem Renaissance, y'all need to follow me on this. When you talk about the Harlem Renaissance, when you talk about the Black Panthers, Oakland, which is in that San Francisco area there. When you talk about that, there's a reason why they stepped in and started messing with that. In Atlanta and Chicago. How do you destabilize a force? Well, if you can't do it from without, you see if you try to exert some influence to disrupt them from within. So then what you tell them is you start sitting up here, you give them about 10, 20 years to call themselves the Black Mecca in Atlanta. You give them 10, 20 years to sit up here and say that and put out a bunch of Outkast albums. And then next thing you know, you tell them, you know what, we're not just black, we're also about LGBT all the time. You start that slowly, and then that starts simmering to a boil. And then next thing you know, your black enclave has changed its agenda. They send in, of course, the Manchurian candidates, Bowser in D.C., Bottom B in Atlanta, Thunderbird Drunk Uncle Lightfoot in Chicago, and all the others. What's her face in San Francisco? Is that London Breed out there? They send a bunch of Manchurian candidates to tell you, okay, the issue ain't black no more. See, Bowser will sit up here and paint Black Lives Matter on the streets, But when it's time to actually do something and the money starts moving, all of a sudden that goes to everybody else. So the money you were going to give black folk, well, that budget went to paint a mural on the street. Everybody else gets real tangibles. So just understand that that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. You're up against political machines in that regard. When you had David Dinkins and now you got Adams up there, you know, the whole reason for that is because they were selected, because that's what they're going to do. That's the whole point of it, is to create this carnival damn atmosphere. That's the other thing. See, whenever black folks start dominating these places, it all becomes about a carnival. It all becomes about damn Party Me City. That's what it becomes about. New Orleans, Atlanta, Chicago, Oakland. Everything becomes about dancing and partying then. Everybody else is on business, but they tell us we need to have a good time. Yeah, y'all sit over there, have a good time. Go ahead and knock yourselves out. Dance, sing, have carnival, play loud music. They know what they're doing in that regard. They've encouraged and cultivated that as being, okay, now that you're in charge, party time. And then once you've been destabilized, they say, oh, hell, look, y'all let the whole damn place go to hell. You need to let some of us white folk come in and let us run it. Now, you need to let us come run it so we can get things back straight again. Case in point, Detroit. Mayor Duggan. Okay, well, y'all were partying and bull jiving. Kwame Kilpatrick, the Mackin mayor. The Mackin mayor Kilpatrick. Oh, well, you know, things have gone to hell here. Well, by the way, it was the white politicians who sent it to hell. Well, you need to put us in charge so we can go ahead and get things straight again. Yes, you can give the whole damn city to Dan Gilbert and Quicken. Yeah, that's fixing it. The idea to fix Detroit is to give the city to Dan Gilbert and the Quicken Company. That's what you need to do. Of course, makes perfect sense. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller Miracle 216. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Mark from Cleveland.
Okay, Mark from Cleveland. You have a lot of background noise going on there, brother. Are you power washing your car or your house?
Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. Let me cut my fans off. Okay, can you hear me better now?
Okay, a little bit here. What's on your mind?
Okay, we have to look at this gender dysphoria definition a lot deeper. I think what they're trying to do, and I'm going to land my plane on this one, they're trying to slide that pedophilia in there as a medical condition. And on that note, brother, I land my plane.
You are very correct about that. This is laying the groundwork for that. You're very correct. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Anybody who's thinking about that before, yes. This is laying the groundwork for the next step. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why they sent in Rhode Island State Senator Sandra Mack and Tiara Mack. Yeah, that's the whole point of it. Yeah. That's the whole point. Caller from area code 929. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Daryl from Chicago.
Daryl from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Jason, another excellent broadcast as always. And to piggyback off what that gentleman just said, yes, we've been talking about this in one of your earlier broadcasts, and we mentioned like on numerous broadcasts about how they're going to set things up for the open pedophilia. They're still having a lot of cases and catching a lot of people doing that, and this is the one that they're gonna slowly, like you said, step by step, they're gonna push forward on that. And as far as the kids are concerned in the school systems in certain states, they've taken away the rights of the parents for the kids to be able to talk to or talk about certain situations. They don't want the parents involved. They rather have the schools involved. So that's taking away the parental rights. So that's another that issue. You spoke about that one too, and that's another case. And then of course, since I can remember even when Clinton was in office, they did the LGBT stuff. Even when Bush Sr. was in office, they did that. So this is not nothing happening. This is just leading up to the point where we're at right at this point. But again, people need to watch the bouncing ball and understand the situation. You know, and it's anything they could divert from us getting reparations, they'll keep on trying to do that. But we're going to get it anyway, because just like this is going to fall, Rome fell, and this is going to fall. That's all I have to say. Be one.
Thank you very much for giving this call here tonight. Black First, as always. Let me get caller area code 832. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yes, I had. I wanted to. I'm Robert from Houston, Texas.
Okay, Robert from Houston. What's on your mind?
Okay. Now I see Kamala Harris, who blatantly said that she just wasn't going to do anything for Black people. I feel like that set the tone. And then also when you had the First Lady, I believe that's the first Black lady. I think she's Haitian, and the look that she gave, to me, it just sent a clear message that there was no agenda for African Americans, point blank, period, and that the LBGT would be the continuous, ongoing, I guess, forefront to change things. And I was going to say what that caller said about pedophilia, because it seems like to me, even everybody that's in the political office are kind of down with the pedophilia thing too. I mean, just for you to blatantly just not do anything for Black folks, and then you still can continue as a Black woman, and those two women are in the powerful positions to not support anything that's completely Black. To me, it's just a smack in the face. That's just to me.
Well, they were selected. And also, when you go into their sexual histories, you see it was like, oh, no wonder they selected you. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Let me get caller area code 516. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, my name Laura from Long Island, New York.
Okay, Laura from Long Island, you need to turn off your speakers.
Okay, no, I'm not on my speaker. I'm trying to. I'm not on. I'm on regular phone.
I hear my voice behind you.
Oh, that was because I was listening to it on a device.
Okay.
I found out that.
What's on your mind, Laura?
I beg your pardon?
What's on your mind?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your program and my opinion in regards to reparation. I don't believe, yes, it is the, quote, civil right group, which I'm a member of, that failed. But not all of us failed for this reason. Being 16 and 15 and in the movement, you're not thinking in the mode of planning for 100 years from that particular time to a futuristic time. But other groups have been planning in this government, and that's how they plan. 150, 75 years, that is how they plan. So when we do see something going down that's not going to benefit us, we're not really truly aware of it being sort of circumvented around civil rights and everything civil rights, and not stating, as you correctly stated, that we are Black people. We are people of African descent, Black Africans. We didn't.
Well, here's the issue about the civil rights
something.
generation. The thing here is the not everybody thing that doesn't really matter at this point, because the civil rights generation as a group, that was the way they were moving. The civil rights generation as a group made their priority interracial sexual access. That was the only thing they were really interested in. They were willing to fight and get their heads busted open and everything else, but their end game was interracial sexual access. And that was the end game, because when you ask them, okay, what do they have to show for it? The first two things they say is, well, you can work with white folks, you can shop with white folks, or you can get a white girlfriend. So while you might be accurate that there were some exceptions to it, we can't count those because they're statistically irrelevant. The real problem is, as a group, the way they were moving, that's the way the issue was there. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight here. We appreciate that. Let me get caller area code 612. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello, Jason. Good evening. This is George from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
All right, George, Minneapolis. Ain't heard from you in a minute, brother. Welcome back. What's on your mind?
Yeah, brother. I want to give you a real digest of 3 key points. One, the fact that the Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, have defined themselves as foundational Black Americans. They have put the whole entire system under check. And that is why you see all this aggressiveness from them. I am a migrant, and I fully support the fact because it gives a clear picture of what reparation is going to be. Secondly, I also want to warn the family that be very careful with any haphazard type of reparation. It should be backed by laws. It should be backed by definitions from the Congress and from the House, and clearly defined. Because if we don't follow through with that, the tendency is that they are going to give some sort of one person will come up and say, oh, this is reparation. The other person will come and say, and it will end up boil down to nothing, and then they'll come up and say, oh, we gave them reparation. So we should be very clear about what reparation is and how it's supposed to be done. It's supposed to be backed by legislation, backed by laws, before we can consider it a reparation. Third, there is something that I also want to bring up. One, what we talk about this gender issue, the onslaught is on black family, very, very much, because one, what they did was separate the black men and from the black women. The women now were giving birth to just men who were in their houses, more effeminate men. It was easier for them to get into the line of being more effeminate and getting into this alphabet type of lifestyle. And you are now seeing that women are being replaced. Women don't even have the say. They are, now you can't even define a woman. So, and you see most of the people who have been elected into positions, they are people that are either for the agenda or they are one of the alphabet people. And thankfully, black family, it's really heavy. I just wanted to point out those few things. Brother, thank you very much for all you do. You changed my mind, changed my mindset, and how I look at things. Be one. Stand wholly as a soldier for the Foundation of Black Americans for that reparation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Please do give us a call again. That's George checking in. Let me get caller area code 718. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, I'm Babs from Brooklyn.
All right, Babs from Brooklyn. What's on
Hello?
your mind?
Hi, a couple of things with the gender war, or whatever you want to call it. There's a new app out in some of the progressive states, California, New York, where they're actually tracking kids when they go to the bathroom. So, and the main thing is to make sure they're not doing meetups or, I mean, they're taking their freedoms away. And I think parents should know this. They probably aren't. You need to be reading tech rags to pick up on some of this stuff. And then there are issues where there's aggressions from women on other women, especially younger women, or, you know, women that are more contained. So, and nobody's talking about that when you ask. It's an avoided answer. And I know somebody that had to step away from a job because she felt like she had no protections. And
yeah, I mean, you have to understand that's one of those covert strategies that they use there. What you do is you get a Tiara Mack or somebody like her, and then you use them to soften up the girls. Once you've used them to soften up the girls, the next thing you know, the girls are going to be prime real estate and vulnerable to the males who show up. That's what the strategy is.
Well, it's definitely a leapfrog move, and women that think that they're independent, you know, have a second thought, because everything that you say too is, if you're in a professional career and you get, you know, towards the middle of it, you know, to 30s, 40s, or whatever, it is way more stressful, you know, than you ever thought if you want to keep up. And men are not wired for that. So that's one thing that women should listen to. I listen to some of your young women on the business, and they don't know, you know, they think that they're making the money or whatever, but in 10, 20 years when they start to stress out and go nuts because they can't handle the pressure and there's nobody there, they have no mentors or no circles of people to protect them. You know, we as women, we are supposed to be submissive. But anyway, thank you for everything, and keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Let me get caller from area code 312. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hello?
Yes, you're on live with the pipe down. What is your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, this is Stefan from Chicago, Illinois.
Stefan from Chicago. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to ask a question about the restitution. Well, not restitution, it's the reparations. So my question is, so with reparations, I know they're going by like people that were African American people that actually came from like ancestors of enslaved African Americans. So my question for you is, what if the person, like, what if they have like a mix of different races from their ancestry line, like, you know, like white, Native American? How would they go by proving that that person is actually like 100% black?
Okay, so you think that reparations is based upon a standard of 100% quote black?
I mean, not 100% black, just from people that came from enslaved ancestors.
Okay, well, that's not hard to find. When you're going by the 1870 census, that's not hard to find.
Okay.
That's just genealogy. Now, if you're trying to ask about if you're trying to ask a qualification question, that's a different matter.
Okay.
Now,
So,
we have to
what
be
type of
careful.
qualifications would they have- would
Well,
they have to have?
we have to be careful about that there, because if you're going to make, we've run into this kind of thing here before. I've told everybody about this. You're running that kind of thing there before. The real thing is if their genealogy qualifies for that. If their genealogy qualifies for that and they haven't been taking actions where they identify as something else, if they haven't contested it or disputed it, then that would be the situation there.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to go into other nation states that have dealt with this kind of thing about how they deal with people of various lineages, but definitely going forward about those things, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to try to make it a two-parent thing, that's going to be kind of difficult. If you're going to try to do that, especially after all this time here, that's going to be difficult. And understand, the dominant society, the argument that you make there, the dominant society could very easily use that to disqualify everybody. So there's the part you all haven't thought about. They could use the argument that you're trying to make there. If you try to make an absolutist argument, then they're going to use that to disqualify everybody. So that's why you can't do that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you can't do that one because they'll just disqualify at that moment you've given them the ability to nullify and disqualify everybody, and that's what they would like to have. So, and here's the real thing: our real issue is not to sit up here and I don't think we do ourselves any favors by spending undue time trying to quote unquote disqualify people. We need to have a standard, and that standard is what needs to hold in that regard. As far as folks who might be mixed or whatever, once again, those become red herrings you kind of chase after, because then you're allowing detritus arguments to be made. Now, there might be a place for making sure that you don't have folks. The real thing is about not having folks here who their identity and the way they've been living is completely separated from that. That's something to keep in mind in that regard. Now, the one thing I would look for is, if you're dealing with folks who have an immigrant background in there, that might be something to take a look at. That might be something to take a look at in that regard. Does the fact that one of their parents might come from somewhere else, we're talking about grandchildren or great-grandchildren at this point, does that nullify their FBA lineage? Okay, thank you very much for giving us a call. All these Negroes calling me from payphones. They done found the last 2 payphones left in America to call me from. So I don't know where they came from. They found the last 2 payphones in America to call me from. Let me get caller from area code 908. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Name is Omar from Trenton.
Okay, Omar from where?
From Trenton, New Jersey.
Okay, Omar from Trenton. What's on your mind?
Yeah, when you told me that they were trying to label trans as a medical condition, it was funny because gay was in the DSM as a mental disorder years ago, but it was arbitrarily taken out of the DSM, if I'm not mistaken, by vote. And I find it funny because of course you wouldn't want to have a mental disorder because that means going to therapy, fighting to root the problem. But no one wants to be labeled as crazy. But a medical disorder mental situation is different because you get all types of goodies, all types of tangibles, disability money. You can get the 2 handicapped spots in front of the store. You get all kinds of goodies by a medical condition. I find that funny. You don't want to be labeled crazy, but I'll be labeled handicapped because I can get all the goodies from it. This is talking about a banana in a tailpipe. It's just.
I mean, no, you are absolutely.
It's a con job.
You are absolutely correct in everything you are saying. When the lawyer in the story, Joshua Elric, said that this can help them for not just the people who are incarcerated, which is what the case was filed for, but for anyone from workplace accommodations to public accommodations. You're absolutely correct. They could say that their gender dysphoria gives them a handicap sticker. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Okay, is everybody out here? I mean, is he shoveling his driveway? What is going on here? Everybody's on a cell. Everybody's at a payphone. They're shoveling their driveways. They're at the subways. Just the struggle is real out here. Everybody's calling me in the middle of doing something else. So, folks, come on now, get whatever you're doing wrapped up so we can go ahead and have all that going differently here. Come on now. Let me get caller area code 404. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Leroy from Atlanta.
Leroy from Atlanta. What's on your mind?
Man, first off, everybody out there needs to make sure they subscribe because I found out last week I wasn't, and that's why I missed that Black Business Atlanta show. But on this topic right here, this still ground central because Stacey Abrams is a leader in this regard. She got everything to say about, quote, other communities, but now she's ready to turn around and blame black men if we don't come out and vote for her. So we just got to come together as black men, as black women, and look out for each other because, bruh, they ain't looking out for us at all.
No,
they come out in full
they have an
because
agenda.
They painted swastikas.
They're not looking out for us. They have an agenda for us.
Oh, no doubt. But, dude, they put swastikas on the rainbow crosswalk that a black male put in place for them. That's the stuff we got to fight against. People in our own community who trying to do us bad. But it's all good, though. We still going to stay down. Be one.
Black First Brother, thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. And certainly going forward, everybody needs to be on guard against that kind of thing. Everybody needs to be watching now. Just understand, folks, he's absolutely correct about that. I mean, this is shoehorning in special rights and special privileges. Leapfrogging black people. Leapfrogging black people. Hey, if you're willing to identify as trans and, hey, if you're conflicted about it, think about that for a few moments. If you're conflicted, I want y'all to think about this now. If you are conflicted, what the hell does that mean? If you are conflicted about your sexuality, gender dysphoria means if you are conflicted about it. So in other words, you get to pick and choose when you identify as something. I want y'all to follow me here. Think about Jeffrey Dahmer. Individuals like that. John Wayne Gacy. Individuals like that. That they get to pick and choose when they are. So when they want to make a move on your daughters in the bathroom, they can identify as female. And during the times they don't want to, then they can identify as male. Oh, well, I've got a disability. Yeah, I've got a handicap. I got a disability. Yeah, well, man, look here. Today, I thought you were transsexual. I thought you liked dudes. Well, no, I saw you with a girl last night. What's going on there? Well, I'm conflicted. So you're not bisexual? No, I'm not bisexual. I'm conflicted. I have a disability. Y'all thought the dating game was messed up before. Ladies, how you feel about that? There's going to be some fellas out here with some handicap parking stickers, and you thinking it's handicap because he's got a bad hip or a bad knee. He's got a handicap sticker or a handicap card because sometimes he's hetero and sometimes he isn't. He's conflicted about the whole thing. I'm not being funny. That's what the wording of this says. That's what the wording of it says. Brother Neely Fuller has been telling us about this now for decades. Gender confusion. He always predicted that. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing followed up on that. Yes, sowing gender confusion is going to be a major, major strategy. Here we are. Here we are. Here we are. Somebody in the chat room says sexual deviant rights. Do you realize how many sexual deviants there are in Congress? In media? In corporate America? And right now it's not legal for them to do some of the stuff they want to do, but slowly but surely they're putting the bricks in place to do what they want to do. So they don't have to keep flying out of the country. Places like Thailand, Bangkok, they want to be able to do it here. They don't want to have to leave the country. They want to have the convenience of doing it here. They want the convenience of doing it here. Jeff Epstein was not the only one. Jeff Epstein was one among many. One among many. And you might not want to think about them, but they've been thinking about you. You might not want to be thinking about them, but they have been thinking about you. They've been thinking about you a lot, and they've been thinking about your children also. Very much been thinking about them. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend. Definitely make sure you click the subscribe button and the yellow notification bell. I know this is a somber subject here tonight. It's really kind of crazy. Folks, do y'all understand that? The courts have said that being transsexual is protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act and gets special privileges now. Man, things ain't moving slowly. They're moving quick. They're not even moving slowly like they were anymore. They're moving fast. This is a sobering moment. This is a sobering moment. Do you realize that? If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go there and check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m. Gentrified Race War. All available on DVD, on streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com and go and check that out. Thank you to Najee, everybody else who's contributed to support tonight's program here on PayPal or Cash App. So thank you very much for your support here. We appreciate that as always. I want all of y'all out here, keep an eye on your children, your kin folks, everything else. Now more than ever, we're all we got. Now more than ever, we are all we got, y'all. They're not even waiting on legislation anymore. They're not even waiting on that anymore. The courts are codified. Everybody here is moving everything into position. It's not a joke. This concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.